Ozark Morning. The woods were full of unseen noisemakers. Morning sounds greeted the quickly rising sun. Dewdrops clung precariously to the edge of leaves, refracting the light and leaping to splatter on the carpet of moist grass below. "Come on, man," a voice gravelly and deep whispered. "If we hurry, we'll make it on time." Two men dressed in heavy parkas and winter boots increased their pace. The path they followed was faint and rarely used by humans. They pushed through an almost solid wall of leaves and bushes that stopped at their knees. "What kind of animal made this?" asked one, his voice light and floating. He sounded like a cultured city dweller, and he walked with an awkwardness ill-suited to the trail. "Boars, Bob," said the other. His voice rumbled from deep as in his chest and assaulted the air. "Boars, rabbits, other small things." "Boars? Is that a wild pig?" "A real wild one. Huge tusks, razor sharp. Can gut a man in one swipe." Bob looked around fearfully, but didn't stop walking. His guide was Cassius Huey, the most experienced backwood tracker in the small town. He had come highly recommended to Bob, who searched the town for a special guide. But he did not come easy. Bob thought this assignment was the strangest he had been given since the LA riots. His magazine sent him into the deep, lush, dark forest of northern Arkansas, hundreds of miles from a decent coffee house, to capture the exploits of a maniac. He loved the countryside. It was a beautiful expanse of tiny mountains that unfolded along the ground like a children's map. Colors fought in the trees, red bleeding into yellow, dying into brown. Bald rock-crowned heads watched peacefully over a long, deep valleys. Clear streams scarred the sides of the mountains, making tiny ribbons in the light. Bob followed Cassius in search of one of the larger streams. It bore the unoriginal name of Taylor's Rapids, but had one very unique feature. At one point the walls jetted 30 feet above the water, and the stream narrowed from a wide smooth 15 feet to only 3. The water channeled through the gorge at unbelievable speeds, and where the wall ended was a waterfall. The fall wasn't a great distance, no more than 30 feet, but the water rushed out of the puncture in the wall at over 50 miles an hour. The locals called it the flume and gathered at the bottom to fish the fertile pool below. "Watch out!" Huey grabbed his arm and pulled him back from barging into a tree. "Thank you." "De nada. Tu hablo español?" "What?" "Never mind," Bob said. He probably picked the phrase up from television. Bob had found the guide nursing a beer on the front porch of his ramshackle cabin. Huey was watching a baseball game on a 13-inch black and white television with rabbit ears. Bob walked up to the porch confidently and introduced himself. "Are you Cassius Huey? Do I know you? I need a guide, and I was told Mr. Huey was the best. Are you he?" "I am he. I'm a writer for a lifestyle magazine, and I've been sent on a special assignment," said Bob. "Well, Mr. Writer, can you do me a favor and shut up?" "Pardon me? I'm trying to watch this game." Bob walked up on the porch and leaned against the wall. "I didn't think the game was on regular television," he said. "Satellite," the big man grunted and pointed over his shoulder. His eyes never left the television screen. Bob followed his finger to the gleaming silver dish that squatted uncomfortably beside the clapboard cabin. It seemed too modern, too out of place, a small piece of the future that waited for the rest of the town to catch up. "Nice," said Bob. The man in the vinyl recliner didn't answer. They finished the game in silence. He leaned forward and cut off the television. "What do you want?" "I'm here on assignment." "You already told me that." "I want to go find." Bob pulled out a notebook. "Taylor's Rapids. A place called the Flume. Do you know it?" Cassius answered slowly. He reached beside the chair and grabbed a bottle of beer. He pulled on it and rested the bottle between his legs. "Yeah, I know it." The two men looked at each other. "Why you want to go there?" "Someone told us that a man shot the Flume regularly. I want to interview him. My magazine sent me here to find him, and everyone I talked to sent me to you." "Yeah. That guy's crazy. You will be too if you talk to him. Won't catch me doing that stupid kind of stuff." "Can you take me?" "How much?" "What's your rate?" "What'll you pay?" "How about 150? 75 now and 75 when we get back." "Son, I just might kiss your ass for $150. When you want to go?" "As soon as possible," Bob smiled. He thought getting the man to work would be impossible. His friends had teased him that hillbillies were lazy and shiftless. "Would tomorrow work?" "Hell, I ain't doing nothing tomorrow." "Sure. Be here at 5. Dress warm." The conversation ended. Huey walked into the house and shut the door. Bob stared at the cardboard-covered window for a few moments. Then he shrugged his shoulders and walked back to his car shaking his head. The next morning came earlier than Bob knew existed. Actually, he knew it was there, but he couldn't believe people were really up and moving that early. He quickly donned a pair of new hiking boots and a shiny parka. He hadn't prepared for the cold mountain air and had to buy one in the store in town. He thought Arkansas was supposed to be in the south. The south was hot and muggy, right? His breath misted in the air and plumed in misty clouds. He heard people in the rooms around him moving. He shook his head and left the room. It was too damn early. He hurried to Huey's house, and found him waiting on the porch. The television was tuned into cartoons and the big man's hand was wrapped around a cup of steaming coffee. "You're late." Bob looked at his watch. 5:03 a.m. "Sorry," he said. "City boy. Come on, let's go." They climbed into an old Chevy truck and took off into the morning. They drove for an hour along almost deserted two-lane, except for the occasional headlights of another truck. At first, Bob tried to engage in conversation, but his companion batted away every attempt with monosyllabic grunts. He gave up and surrendered himself to the darkness. He was amazed when his eyes detected the growing light of morning. "How far?" he asked. He knew the stream was roughly 100 miles from town, but he was terrible at judging distances. "Here," said Cassius and yanked the truck off to the side of the road. He reached around and dug behind the seat for a parka almost identical to Bob's, only older and more worn. He strapped a huge pistol to his leg and smiled at Bob's glance. "Varmints," he winked. The pool rippled and tumbled under the waterfall. Bob thought it was a stroke of nature's genius. It painted the pool long and flat and pushed the waterfall 1/4 of the way into the middle of the water. The area of the pool under the falls was misty and shadowed. Rainbows danced and disappeared, moved and shifted as a light breeze manipulated the water. "Takes the breath, huh?" said Cassius. "Yes," Bob muttered. "Yes, it does." He unstrapped the digital Nikon and snapped off several dozen shots. They were the only visitors so far, but he knew the fishermen would arrive soon. Fish leapt every few feet, snapping at flies that darted along the surface. Their silvery bodies caught the morning sun and flashed it back. "This is beautiful," Bob said because words didn't seem to be enough. "Can we go to the top after I interview him?" Cassius kneeled in front of the pool. He raised his hands to the sky, his voice boomed over the water. "Great Spirit, your beauty is wonder. We thank you." Bob stared at him with an open mouth. "Are you an Indian?" "Native American," Cassius corrected. "And I'm a little bit of everything. I think the prayer is anyhow. My pawpaw taught it to me, Bessie got it from his. To answer your question, yes, we can go topside once you're finished up down here." They sat on a flat rock that bordered the edge of the pool. "I should have brought my pole," said Cassius. "It looks like you could reach out and grab one." "Probably could, if you was fast enough," Cassius teased. "Wanna try?" "I would miss and fall in," said Bob. "Too cold." "City boy. Did you bring lunch?" "Shit," Bob snapped. "You may get wet trying to catch it." "Oh man," stammered Bob as he started at the cool expanse of the pool. "Let it warm up some," Cassius said. "Who knows? Maybe Archie will grab one on his way down." "Archie? Is that his name?" "Yeah, Archie Huey." Bob quirked up an eyebrow. He rooted in his pocket and pulled out a moleskin. "Any relation?" "Sure is. My pawpaw. Grandfather. Mother's side." "The Indian." "Native American. How did you get Huey for a last name?" "No father," shrugged Cassius. "Oh," Bob stuttered. "I'm sorry." "For what?" "Mom was young. Stupid. It is in fact a very common story up here. Dad joined the army and left her with me. That's about when Archie went nuts. Few years later he moved on up here into a cabin. No one sees him too much." Bob's pen flew across the notebook pages as he scratched cryptic markings in shorthand. "So you don't talk to him?" "Nah, used to be, not so much anymore. He's crazy." "How old is he?" "You know, I'm not so sure. Must be round 76, maybe 77. Could be a little older." "My God, that's incredible," Bob said softly and shook his head. "Yeah, he's strong as a horse. Least he always has been, far as I can remember. But 76 and doing this extreme stuff, that's almost a miracle." "Maybe. I saw on the TV this old man swim with a boat tied to his neck. Out in the ocean with all them sharks. That there is pretty amazing." That guy is strong, but this. The pool rippled and tumbled under the waterfall. Bob thought it was a stroke of nature's genius. It painted the pool long and flat and pushed the waterfall 1/4 of the way into the middle of the water. The area of the pool under the falls was misty and shadowed. Rainbows danced and disappeared, moved and shifted as a light breeze manipulated the water. Takes the breath, huh? Said Cassius. Yes, Bob muttered. Yes, it does. He unstrapped the digital Nikon and snapped off several dozen shots. They were the only visitors so far, but he knew the fishermen would arrive soon. Fish leapt every few feet, snapping at flies that darted along the surface. Their silvery bodies caught the morning sun and flashed it back. This is beautiful, Bob said because words didn't seem to be enough. Can we go to the top after I interview him? Cassius kneeled in front of the pool. He raised his hands to the sky, his voice boomed over the water. Great Spirit, your beauty is wonder. We thank you. Bob stared at him with an open mouth. Are you an Indian? Native American, Cassius corrected. And I'm a little bit of everything. I think the prayer is anyhow. My pawpaw taught it to me, guess he got it from his. To answer your question, yes, we can go topside once you're finished up down here. They sat on a flat rock that bordered the edge of the pool. I should have brought my pole, said Cassius. It looks like you could reach out and grab one. Probably could, if you was fast enough, Cassius teased. Wanna try? I would miss and fall in, said Bob. Too cold. City boy. Did you bring lunch? Shit, Bob snapped. You may get wet trying to catch it. Oh man, stammered Bob as he started at the cool expanse of the pool. Let it warm up some, Cassius said. Who knows? Maybe Archie will grab one on his way down. Archie? Is that his name? Yeah, Archie Huey. Bob quirked up an eyebrow. He rooted in his pocket and pulled out a moleskin. Any relation? Sure is. My pawpaw. Grandfather. Mother's side. The Indian. Native American. How did you get Huey for a last name? No father, shrugged Cassius. Oh, Bob stuttered. I'm sorry. For what? Mom was young. Stupid. It is in fact a very common story up here. Dad joined the army and left her with me. That's about when Archie went nuts. Few years later he moved on up here into a cabin. No one sees him too much. Bob's pen flew across the notebook pages as he scratched cryptic markings in shorthand. So you don't talk to him? Nah, used to be, not so much anymore. He's crazy. How old is he? You know, I'm not so sure. Must be round 76, maybe 77. Could be a little older. My God, that's incredible, Bob said softly and shook his head. Yeah, he's strong as a horse. Least he always has been, far as I can remember. But 76 and doing this extreme stuff, that's almost a miracle. Maybe. I saw on the TV this old man swim with a boat tied to his neck. Out in the ocean with all them sharks. That there is pretty amazing. That guy is strong, but this. A loud yell stretched through the morning. Bob jumped and whipped around to face the falls. Here he comes, shouted Cassius over the scream. He stood beside Bob and pointed where he should look. They watched and waited. The morning stood still as the yell froze nature and the sounds around them. A black shadow shot out in the falls riding the prow of water. The yell didn't stop. The shape hung in midair a moment, graceful strong lines standing out sharply against the morning-lit sky. It arched toward the water and sliced into the middle of the pool. Holy shit, whispered Bob. That was amazing. Cassius stood beside him, a grin splitting his face. Amazing, he agreed. Archie stayed underwater as he swam for shore and then popped up when he could stick his head and shoulders above. Water cascaded off his long white hair that hung down his back in wet strands. His skin was tan and leathery, wrinkled from the sun and deep laugh lines. He didn't look 76. His body was broad and corded with muscle. He looked 46, with strong white teeth that filled his mouth and a broad smile he couldn't wipe off his face. He nodded to Bob. Morning, stranger, he said in a deep voice and glanced at Cassius. I heard you yelling. That was amazing, Mr. Huey, Bob gushed. Just incredible. You like that, huh? Call me Archie. You ought to try it. Me? No way. I'd kill myself trying. The old man nodded. Probably. You smell like city. Nice coat. He stepped in front of Cassius. How you doing, son? Hey, Pap. You okay? Doing real good. How about you? No complaints. Every day I wake up and I ain't 6 feet under is a glory to me. Archie moved past them and sat on the big flat rock. He pulled down the top of his dive suit around his waist and tied the sleeves. From afar, Bob thought it had been a neoprene dive suit, but up close it looked as if old rubber tire tubes had been crudely sewn together with tight leather laces. It had the effect of casting a pioneer look around Archie, like some character from Last of the Mohicans. "You don't look crazy," he said softly. "You heard that, did you?" Bob tripped over the rocks as he moved to stand by Archie. "I'm with a magazine on a story," he said. "I was wondering why you do it." "What for?" Bob quirked up an eyebrow and tilted his head. "Excuse me? Why were you wondering?" "Seems pretty simple. I'm just an old man going for a swim." "That's not just a normal swim." "I suppose not. I talk to people who do different things most people consider out of the normal. And then I write about it. We heard about you and they sent me." "You want to interview me?" "Yes, please." He pressed the tip of his pen to the moleskin, ready to jot down pearls of wisdom and some existential truth about the quest for feeling alive. It's what most of the extreme sports guys talked about. His favorite was, "You never know how to live until you almost die," or some variation thereof. Just because it was a cliché didn't mean it wasn't true. "Nope," said Archie. "Nope?" "Nope," he stated again. "I don't want to be interviewed." "Why?" "Well," the old man pulled a knee up to his chest and wrapped his arm around it. Blue-gray eyes twinkled up at Bob. "I don't really mind you writing about me so much, that's all right. But I can't tell you nothing about what I do. There ain't much to it. It's just swimming. You swim over the edge of a waterfall and shoot halfway across a pool in 50-degree water. It's a little more than swimming. That's like doing a polar bear plunge every day." "Literally plunging," Cassius snorted. "But you can tell me why you do it," said Bob. "I mean, what you do is self-evident, but our readers want to know the reason behind the what." Archie shrugged. "Like I said, it's just swimming. I get a good inside feeling when I swim. That's a part of why I do it. And I like the way my balls go up in my throat almost every time I go over the edge." He studied Bob a moment, then looked at Cassius. "There is something to it that can't be put to words." The old man stood and stretched. His rubber suit was almost dried under the rising morning sun. "What is your suit made of?" asked Bob. "Tire," confirmed Archie and turned to Cassius. "Go catch us some fish." "I ain't got a pole," said the big man. "Use a stick, boy. What do you think they are there for?" Cassius walked into the woods and quickly disappeared among the trees. He came out off the tree line several hundred feet further down with a long thick branch in one hand and his Bowie knife in the other. He sharpened the end of the stick into a point. He walked to the edge of the water and poised on a rock ledge. He looked like some savage in a primitive land, except he was clad in blue jeans and a well-worn parka. He held the pose for several minutes as Bob watched in fascination. The stick lashed out, struck like a snake and speared a shiny silver fish that wiggled to escape. Cassius flung it up on the bank where it flopped and twisted. He adopted the pose again. "Come with me," said Archie. He led Bob into the forest. "Can I ask you something?" the old man said as they cast about for deadwood. He picked up a fallen log and handed it to Bob to hold. "Sure. Why do you write?" "It's my job," Bob answered quickly. "Do you like your job?" "Yes, I like it very much." "Would you write even if it weren't your job?" Bob considered for a moment and nodded. "I like to write. I've pretended at it since I was a teenager, and somewhere along the way I got good at it. I'm working on a novel." "So you like it?" "Like it. I feel like I have to do it. Most of the time. That's why I jump. That's one of the reasons anyhow." He gathered kindling and smaller branches, passed some to Bob and began to lead him back to the pool. The ever-present roar of the falls grew louder the closer they got. "But," Bob started to say. "No," said Archie. "Can't be no buts. You decide and you do. That's another reason I do it." "No try," said Bob. "Star Wars." "What's that?" "The movie." "Huh. I heard of it, but I ain't seen it. I don't watch the television. It's sort of become this famous mantra. You do or do not. There is no try, or something like that. Well, that don't make no sense. I've always been particular to try and try again. You kinda keep on trying till you do it, then do it again. So you do it again and again for the adrenaline rush, because you like it and you don't like to think about it." Archie set the kindling up in a small teepee, and broke and carefully placed the larger branches around it. That's pretty much right. Grab that stick, he instructed. I do it because I can. And I'm good at it. Not that it takes much to be good at falling, mind you, but I've got a few years on my chassis, so taking a tumble even in water ain't as easy as I make it look. Okay, so what got you started? Bob watched Archie pull out a stone and strike a piece of metal to it. Sparks landed on the kindling and smoked up into a tiny flame. The old man fed sticks into the flame and let it grow to a small fire by the edge of the rock. Don't know, he said finally. Been doing it forever. When will you stop? Now see, said Archie. Ask me when I'll stop being free. 'Cause that's all it is to me. Freedom? The ultimate form of freedom. I don't got no gravity, no seatbelts or stop signs. All I got is me in that cold, cold water, and I fly. 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 Archie jumped up and skipped around the fire as he turned the word fly into a chant. He sang at the top of his lungs in a rhythmic fashion, shuffled his feet in time with his loud voice. Fly. 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 Cassius walked up with 3 trout and laid them on the rock by the fire. Food's here, he announced. Well, come on then, said Archie. He passed a branch to each man and held the tip of his out to Cassius. The guide quickly cut the end into points on all 3 sticks. Following their example, Bob jammed the pointed end of the stick through a fish's mouth and roasted it over the flames. When it was cooked, he tore off pieces with his fingers, and it was one of the best things he had ever tasted. Other fishermen began showing up. One slipped out of the woods on the far side of the pool and set up next to the water. He gave a silent wave and ignored them. Many moments later, a second older man set up at the edge of the pool behind the waterfall. Archie, Bob and Cassius lounged around the fire. Cassius dozed on the rock. Bob kept shifting so that he wouldn't fall asleep, but the breeze through the trees whistled against the white noise of the falls that created a perfect zone for snoozing. Nature was talking, and Bob finally heard. What are you going to put in that story? Archie called to him. I had an idea when I was coming up here, said Bob. I knew exactly how this article would go. I'd just slip your quotes in the blanks. But you didn't follow my script, so none of my questions matter. I don't know. Yet. Mayhap you could talk about freedom and folks doing what they want no matter what other folks say about them. Books and covers and such. Archie pounced up on the rock and stretched like a cat. He raised his arms toward the sky and reached as high as he could. I ain't hurting nobody when I jump, he said. I do it because it's there and I like it and I can do it and I will do it till I can't no more. I don't know if you could find a better way to say freedom. Yes, but. Told you, boy, there ain't no buts. Archie nudged Cassius' boot with his foot. I'm leaving, boy. I'll be seeing you. Bob watched Archie pick his way to the tree line and slip back into the shadows of the forest. Cassius sat up. He done talking? I'm surprised his voice didn't give out. That's the most I heard him at one time. I thought you said you didn't talk to him for years. Years, days, months. It gets different every time I tell it, winked Cassius. Bob stared at the woods where Archie disappeared on that Ozark morning. You about ready? The walk back to the truck was silent, interrupted by the occasional click of Bob's digital camera. They had visited the top of the flume for a few moments where he snapped off almost 100 shots, and then Cassius led them back to his old fort. That fish was delicious, said Bob. Always good up here, agreed Cassius. Is there a place around here I could rent a pole or some supplies? I think I'd like to go fishing tomorrow. I can't remember the last time I went. Yeah, said Cassius. That sounds like a pretty good idea. They drove along the back roads as the sun shifted over toward the western horizon and cast long shadows that stretched across the 2-lane pavement. The leaves were the color of fire in the fading light. Bob memorized the details as he replayed the day in his mind, trying to salvage an angle for the story he wanted to tell. It was dark when they got back to the B&B. Cassius pulled his truck to the curb and put it in park. You get what you needed? Bob considered for a moment. I think I got something out of it. Archie did some talking about freedom. He's crazy, said Cassius. I wish I was a little more crazy. Maybe you should write a little about that. Good idea, said Bob as he opened the door. He reached back in and slid the $75 he owed Cassius across the seat. Thanks for your help today. You gonna be here another day, huh? That's my plan. Going fishing. Just tell me where to get the pole. Cassius deposited the cash in his shirt pocket. I'll buy the beer, he said. Bob smiled. Sounds great. I'll bring the candy bars. You ain't so bad for a city boy. You ain't either. The two men shared a quiet laugh. Bob turned and walked up to the porch. I think that will work, he said to himself. Hey city boy, Cassius yelled. Bob spun around. 5 o'clock. Don't be late. Bob groaned and waved as Cassius dropped the truck in gear and puttered away. The bed felt cool and comfortable as he slipped between the sheets. Bob closed his eyes and listened for noise on the small town street that pulled the shutters down at dusk. It was quiet. Peaceful. Sleep came quickly, his muscles sore from the hike. He smiled in his sleep, dreaming of the flume and swimming and flying with Archie. The end.